Morning all, it is June 12th, Friday, and another one of those early days in the shop. We got something coming up in the next couple of weeks that I got to get some things done. So we're working on the trailers again this morning, and we're getting them done. We're getting closer and closer done with all these projects. So it's 3 a.m. shop times, and I'm probably not going to stop them. I think a couple times a week is really keep me getting my projects done, because that's one of my goals this year, or goals going forward, is to finish all the outstanding projects. I got too many of them floating around. So where are we at right now? There's a lot of news today that I've just seen floating around the markets, and so let's just start with what we got here for mortgage-backed securities, so we can get into that. Still fairly flat, staying within that trade range. We're now back below some of the trend lines, so that's kind of interesting in itself. They're just keeping in the range. It's going to be however much the Fed puts in is going to dictate whether it stays right up at that trade line, over it or below it. I'm not seeing any real decisive movement one direction or the other. Just stays right here within the channel. So being that we're staying within the channel, rates seem like they're going to stay this way for a while. Now, the other thing that's interesting is they say, how long will the rates stay there for a while? Well, they're probably going to stay for, I believe, some time, because there has been plenty of things that I've been reading lately that tells us that the Fed is going to be continuing on this path till possibly 2022, putting this kind of capital out there into the markets. I find that very interesting, and we'll get back around to that. Some other interesting news today. I got some updates that new leases for 3-bedroom apartments in Manhattan dropped by 71%, looking back into May. So the average rental price for the top 10% rentals fell by 20% in New York. We saw some of the an increase in listings in apartments from New York. So that means people want out of their apartments, like we've been talking about. Now, this is right now just showing where we're at in New York. So I'm guessing there's probably heavy expense out there is contributing to that. It gets back to that whole anything above $1,700. And if you're renting an apartment in New York or Manhattan, it's a hell of a lot more than $1,700. But rentals are up. We are trying to get those rentals filled. So people are moving out of those areas, getting to some single family rentals, and possibly buying, because if you can afford that, you can probably afford a pretty decent house outside of the urban areas and get out into the suburbs, or those kind of areas. So I find that rather interesting. Kind of follow up to what we've been talking about. People want to get out of apartments, get into single family residences. So those of us that are positioned in single family residences should hopefully continue to see some good things here. Now, when we're talking about what the Fed's got going on here and what the plan is, they are definitely bullish. Whatever it is they're attempting to do is looking to try and fuel, looks like, the stock market. But all these things that's happening here within the market, they're trying to get control over. It's having its weight. It's putting a lot of weight on inflation, from what I can tell here. So we have, but some of the inflation numbers don't seem quite right. So we're talking about the Fed brought out the CPI numbers and the PCE, and showing we're sub 1% on inflation, but they're not factoring in the food costs. So it looks like food inflation to 4% from 3.5%. So that went up 0.5%. And then beef. The beef component of the food index jumped 18.2% year over year. So we're seeing, when you're talking about food shortages, that's spiking inflation, but they're not talking about that when you're talking about the core inflation, or the CPI, or the PCE. I find that rather interesting. Another thing that April residential construction plummeted. So we're also going to be seeing a lot less construction out there, according to what I'm getting from Shadow Stats. I'm looking at what John Williams puts out there with respect to the economics. So with that being the case, we're going to have continued shorting housing. Now, when we get back to what I was talking about with the Fed, I've got to share this with you. I'm not a person that looks at Twitter. I just happened to see this when I was reading an article where we're talking about how the Fed is going to be continuing this as long as they have to, right? Up to 2022, putting in as much as, $40 billion a month into mortgage-backed securities. Well, look what is being said here. Sven Henrik from the CEO of Northman Trader, says that the Fed will not stop printing until billionaires become trillionaires. So I'm like, wow. I mean, I don't know if that's just a personal statement or whatever. But then we look down here, Jerome Powell himself tweeting, "You stole my script." I don't know about you guys are saying what you're thinking, but people are asking me, what do you think? What do you think the end game is there? Well, if this is the end game, we're looking at a big gap between people, big gap between haves and have-nots, if you will. Best thing I can offer at this point, guys, is take your little blue Pleos and get your helmet on because somebody's getting screwed. That's the best I can possibly think of here because this is some interesting stuff. So if you're buying investment real estate right now, which you should be, and they're fueling the interest rates to be lower, take advantage of the situation, get yourself some really good long-term capital, but I have no idea where things are heading for the future with respect to this. This is a lot of money they're putting out there into the markets, and I have no idea what to tell you the end result is. It just does not seem like the end result's going to be awesome for everybody in general. It's going to be awesome for somebody, and it looks like they're telling us. So have yourself a great weekend. We'll keep you updated on what we know, and we'll talk again real soon.